Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am joined with ex-client Michael Curtis. I'll have given Michael a lovely little introduction before this, but we'll get straight into things. So how are you, Michael?
I'm really good. Feeling really good in myself. Feeling physically well. I think more importantly, I'm probably mentally, but I definitely am. I'm mentally in a better place. Um, and just feeling excited, kind of for what's to come next.
Good stuff, my man. So we're going to get into all of that. So Michael has been working with me. He's went through the coaching program. He's been hugely successful. He's had a bit of a turbulent past, which we'll talk about from a dietary perspective. And now is like kind of future is so bright. And what we're going to do is, I guess, first and foremost, get to know you a little bit, Michael. So how old are you?
I'm 30 years now.
38 years
Yes.
young. So looking back, what's the history of all of this? Where did it all begin? You mentioned off the air there it's been about 15 years. So you tell me what's kind of happened.
Possibly longer than 15 years. I think. I mean, if you go back to kind of childhood, I was always the chubby kid, and I probably was always liked my food too much, didn't exercise enough. And things stick in my mind from then. Always been the big one, and that kind of rumbled on. Lost a bit weight when I was a teenager. Then I joined the army, and I think in the army everything's quite structured. So you've got your meal times, you've got your food, you're always on the go, you're always exercising, so you kind of burn a lot of that off. And then I left the army, and that stopped, and that structure wasn't there, and kind of went my ends. Really, it was just eating anything, drinking, doing what I want, lost that structure. And then over time, slowly that kind of weight started to creep on. You have kids, you have a job, life gets in the way. You don't prioritize yourself as much, or I didn't. And then you just kind of felt as though I'd come around, approaching kind of my 30s, kicking about sort of 18 stone around there somewhere, and just felt terrible, really. Sort of over time that had affected my self-confidence. Didn't feel good in myself, and then it kind of spirals out of control. I think you look at your physical health, it's connected, or it is with me, to your mental health, and I just felt terrible, really. And start thinking, right, I need to do something. What am I going to do? And then it was kind of looking around to see what was out there, and what I could access to try and improve things. But I think it's always been a problem when I haven't had that structure, and that discipline there, and kind of letting that go. And it was just a gradual build up over time, getting to that sort of 18 stone point.
So prior to getting to that 18 stone point, had there been attempts at losing weight before that?
I tried. So I tried your slimming clubs. So I would go, I would pay me money, jump on the scales, and kind of do that weekly. And initially there was success, and I think there was a point where I'd done quite well. But I'd had to follow that structure, and I'd found that it didn't really match, with my life, with my work life, with my family life. And it become a tie over time, and you get used to doing the same thing kind of day in, day out. And I know some people it would continue to work for, but I didn't want to have to do that for the rest of my life. So I found that I'd get into this cycle where I'd go for, I don't know, like 7-10 weeks, do well, drop off, put the weight back on, come back a bit heavier. And I'd think, right, that works, go back, do it again. And it sort of, I must have done that for years. And I'd switch between different swimming clubs, thinking, slimming, thinking this will work, that'll work. And I just found I was in this cycle of doing the same thing. Tried calorie counting. So I did that, but then I got really obsessive about it. So I was just checking everything, like to the nth degree. It was taking forever to make a meal. And it just, that didn't really fit with us either. And I was eating the wrong kind of foods. I was counting calories, but it wasn't the right calories, if that makes sense. And again, I'd lose, maybe a couple of pounds or something, and then I'd put it all back on again. And then I'd switch from that back to slimming clubs, and then it was kind of back and forward, not really getting anywhere, having little successes, but then it all going back on, feeling even worse about myself. and being even heavier. And then over time, I think it was just like that would just knock me kind of my confidence, my well-being, how I was with people, and it just kind of went on and on and on, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I got it in my head that it must be I need to know more. So I'd like start researching kind of calories, different diets, what I needed to do. Just like went right down the rabbit hole, totally lost my way, information overload. And it all just sort of gone pear-shaped really for all them years. And I got to the point where I thought, you know what, it's just me. I'm not meant to lose weight. This is what it is. I'm going to stay like this. It must be me. And that was it really. I'd kind of just signed myself off and just left it at that after kind of failing for all them years.
No, that's totally relatable for a lot of the clients that I work with. Is it's almost like you kind of dig yourself out of the last diet. So over that course, how many years had this kind of, from when you went on your first diet to us starting to work together?
It's got to be at least 15. It has to be at least kind of 15 years, easily.
And when we started working together, was that the kind of heaviest that you found yourself?
Yeah, that would have been the heaviest, because I'd always come back heavier. So yes, in the short term, you might, I would kind of lose that weight, but then it wasn't maintainable. The systems, whatever I was following, it didn't really relate that well to my life. And kind of, I think I lead a normal life, kind of kids, work, wife, and balancing that all out, trying to do things in your social life as well. And it just, it was too strict. And, you've got to count this, you can't eat that, but you can have this. And, different ways of measuring what you were eating, how you were eating it. It was just too complicated for my life. And I couldn't stick to it. So I'd stick to it for a bit, get sick of it, because, it didn't work for us. And then go on a massive kind of food bender and just kind of shove everything in my mouth that I could find, and then you'd be back to the same point, but you'd be gutted with yourself, or I would. I'd think, right, I'm doing well, something to go wrong. I would clean the cupboard out. It was sweets for me, so I'd just hammer chocolate and everything. I think, right, I've fluffed it up, so I may as well just have this and I'll start again next week. And that just went on and on and on. Eventually, you get up to the 18 stone, you're out of breath walking up the stairs, you can't do any exercise. You don't want to go out, you don't want to socialise really with people, because nothing outfits you. You don't feel particularly great about yourself. I think it's probably not worse, but it's a little bit different for men, maybe, because I find that, especially from a military background, there's a lot of banter and a lot of crack, and you kind of cover over things with that, and you kind of convince yourself that it's not a problem, and that you're happy with who you are and how you are, when really under the surface, if you look at yourself, you're not happy, and you kind of put this kind of mask on for people to get on with things, but yourself, you're not happy, and like you desperately want to do something about it.
So how low were you when we first started?
Well, I think at that point I'd come to the end of my tether. I mean, I didn't know you existed, and I'd just kind of made an agreement with myself that this is how it is, this is how it's going to be. I felt that I'd tried everything. I tried clubs, I tried counting calories. It wasn't making sense to us, it wasn't working for us. And I just thought it was my fault. And, maybe some of it was my fault. Maybe I didn't understand it that well. But I just I'd made me peace with it, really. And I just had to accept that there was nothing I could do about it, and go with it, which was difficult. It was a bitter pill to swallow. And you're unhappy when you're in that place, because you feel like you can't change what you're doing. You just feel stuck, absolutely stuck. Like there's no way out. And you realize that there's things that you probably lose, things that you can't do, like physical wise, kids as well, and all that kind of goes. So it went through my mind, just thinking this, if I'm not healthy and they're growing up, and it's not doing me any favors as I get older. So you've got all that running through your head. Probably the lowest probably one of the lowest points in my life, if I'm being honest.
And this affected you in so many areas of your life, and it stopped you kind of living your life.
Yeah, definitely. I just didn't want to do anything. Probably is more like arsey, really. People asking us to do things, it would always be no, or I'm doing this, or make excuses, or I'd come to doing something, and then get up to the point of doing it, I'd be desperate to find a way out of it. I wouldn't want to go and do something because I didn't feel myself, didn't feel I looked well in myself. And think if you don't feel, that you look your best, then I think you don't kind of feel your best, and then you don't want to go out. I'd be thinking I don't want to go for a drink. It's these calories. It's going to make things even worse. I don't want to go for a meal. So I'll just try and avoid things, and it just gets lonelier and lonelier. And it's hard because then you don't kind of see the impact of what you're doing, the impact it's having on other people, because other people think, oh well, they could think anything, or he doesn't like us, or he's miserable, or he doesn't want nothing to do with us, and things like that. And then you don't want to say it. Especially for me, I found that really difficult to kind of talk about that openly, especially amongst lads. It's kind of, I don't think, you just kind of joke and laugh it off. And I probably is different, like, with my kids, and I felt I was setting a bad example for them. But yeah, it was really, really kind of dark, really, when looking back now on reflection.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that, like, you loved, which you kind of fell out of because of, like, your health and your shape and your confidence, was cycling. Tell us a little bit about that, mate.
So I've never ever been the lightest person. I'm not going to set the cycling world alight, definitely, but I used to enjoy it, and I'd go out and we'd get the miles in and things. And the weight obviously affects that, and you're getting slower, you feel even worse in yourself, you can't keep pace. And I think probably with me, you feel like you're holding people back. You're spoiling people's other rides. They might be able to go quicker without you. And a lot of that's probably in my head. It's sort of how I was feeling at the time. And you just kind of come back from it and you withdraw. You don't want to go out. You don't want to do anything. You start making excuses. And just kind of fell out of love with it. And just knew that, you can't keep pace. Felt terrible after every ride, physically, mentally, and it just put you off. And I'd kind of, everything really, I'd just withdrawn from. I wasn't going out. I wasn't really, like, I just dropped off the side of the earth, really.
Yeah, like, as well, you kind of got labelled with this T-shirt as well. Tell the listeners a little bit about that.
It was just like being kind of the fat lad at the back, and you always are. You get put in that sort of bracket of where you're the slow one, you're the big lad, and you kind of become that. And I think you'll rip yourself apart before anybody else gets the chance to, because in the back of your mind you'll know it's kind of coming, and then you'll automatically pull yourself down, because if you do that, nobody else can do it any worse than that, because you've already done it yourself. But I think over time, like, probably like a defense mechanism, really, that starts to get into your head, or it did with me, and you start to kind of believe it, and it makes it makes things even worse. And you're doing all these different things to try and manage a bad situation, and you can't see kind of the woods for the trees. Things just kind of spiral out of control, and you get this sense of hopelessness, which is, that's probably where I was at that time.
Yeah, that T-shirt, which kind of might have looked on the surface level a little bit like innocent, that kind of fat lad at the back, and that whole, like, I guess, identity may have just hit you a little bit more in the kind of, like, emotionally than maybe what people, like, recognize, which left you, like, just not doing something that you loved.
Yeah, and you kind of, it has that impact on you. It does. I mean, I think it's probably been like a defense mechanism, really, and it was made worse when I've sort of bought into it as well, and I've started to believe it, and just thought, yeah, I am the kind of the fat lad, and you go along with this, and in fairness, I was, but emotionally, it does affect you, and then that's got the impact, mentally, that you lose all confidence, and then you just think, right, I need a way out of this, and that's when you'll not be going out for rides, you won't be sort of socially engaging with people as much, and I was doing all them things, and then you think all of these things that's going on because of weight, and that's where it started at weight, but then you look to what's happened from that, and you've now got all these other issues that's kind of starting to cause major problems.
Yeah, so those problems started showing up in like your personal life. You mentioned your social life, like your relationships at work, things like that. Those were all impacted through just your feelings of self-worth, which stemmed from, your nutrition and health and body fat.
Yeah, you become the weight problem, as I put it, becomes kind of you, and that just takes over like everything. And you don't think it does. And for some people it's an easy fix and they do really well with it, which is great. But for me it wasn't. And it takes over kind of everything. It sort of reaches most parts of your life. And it's not until you really look at it and you just realize how much damage and how much impact it's having on everything. Which it was across the board. Work, you don't feel like you're tired, you're lethargic. Work clothes constantly either going up and up and up, and they don't fit you, and you're getting bigger and bigger. And then obviously the social impacts. You don't want to go out, you don't want to do anything, and you come home and you're eating stuff, you feel guilty when you're eating it, or you don't want to eat it, but then you get that hungry because you're not eating properly that you go and sort of smash a takeaway in, or just eat everything in the cupboard, or crisps, or whatever, or pop, or whatever, and it just becomes a huge problem. But not so much it's the impact it's having on other people as well, and that's probably what I maybe didn't realize as much. And then when you actually step back and have a look at things, and you think, I don't want to push people away, I don't want to hurt people, and then you realize, well, actually, by doing what I'm doing, I'm doing that. Like I said, from such a little thing, well, I say a little thing like weight, you've got this, because it's not managed, you've got this huge problem, where you don't know what you're doing, you're running off in every direction to try and fix things, you're trying every fad that comes along, and every time it doesn't work, you sink a little bit lower, and it just goes on and on and on, like a cycle.
Were you dieting from a place of desperation?
I think it probably gone beyond desperation. It sort of gone into the weird and wonderful, and just literally trying anything to get a bit of a result. And then you would see that maybe that initial £1 or £2 come off, and you'd be like, right, I've cracked it, I've got it. And then it'd change, or it'd stop, or it's been fluid that you've lost, or whatever. And then the weight starts to creep back on, and then it goes up a little bit more this time. So it was like, one step forward, but maybe 5 back. And each time you come back a little bit worse. And that's what has the impact. That's what had the impact for me. The biggest thing is where you're constantly coming back, and then you're a little bit further back from where you started. So the task, it starts to look like insurmountable, that you can't do it, that there's kind of no way out, because you're constantly starting further back, and you just think, God, this is going to be even harder. And then that's when you kind of just think, right, and you just, take your hands off the wheel, and just, that's it, you kind of go with it and just give in.
Yeah, so I mean, before we get into like us working together, if we had like an alternate future where you did nothing, like what would that probably, because I guess for people understand where you are right now, and this is the best time to bring any of my ex-clients on the podcast. It's probably been a couple of months since we've formally worked together.
Yeah.
So we had the initial 12 weeks, and you went out on your own. And I find this is the best time to have a client back on the podcast, because we're not just kind of going off the back of 12 weeks where you've had that kind of like almost you're being controlled by a coach.
Yeah.
I want this service to be about, right, I want to fix you so that you can go well beyond, like, I would love to get you back on the podcast in a year's time, in 5 years' time. And we're always going to have that like relationship where you're going to be able to message me and say, Ian, I'm doing this, which you have done, which is absolutely amazing. But if we had that alternate future where you did nothing, where would you be now? And maybe where would you be in that 5-10 year time?
Probably on a mobility scooter in a diabetic clinic or something like that. I think, honestly, I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't even like to think where I would be. I'd have been up from 18 stone, probably in the, approaching the 20s, feeling even worse. Probably pushed people away that much where I wouldn't really have many people around us. But the biggest thing for me is the impact I'd be having on other people as well. The last thing I want to do is push my friends and push my family away. And I think I probably would have come to that. And like physically, the physical health side of things, it would have been terrible. I would imagine, blood pressure and all the kind of rest of it. I wouldn't even like to think about it. It wouldn't have been a good place, let's put it that way.
So what led you to start working with me?
So there was a colleague who I worked with, and they'd started training. So they'd gone to the gym and they were doing weight training, like resistance training. So I'd spoke to them and I'd said, look, I want to get into it. Can you give us any hints or tips? So they'd give us a number for somebody who could programs together. I got in touch with them, and then I'd start the program, and I was kind of thinking about it. And I'd said, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it properly. Can you recommend anybody who can look into the nutrition side of things? Because I think I need to get a handle on that desperately, and then hopefully that'll go hand in hand with the training. So they'd give us your details, who I hadn't heard of you before, like previous to that, and then I'd kind of get in touch with you, and then arrange to sort of set a chat up and catch up with you and see what we could. Yeah.
Say that last bit again. Sorry, Michael. Your internet just went down.
Which bit?
Just you set up a chat with myself.
Yeah. So kind of set up a chat with yourself to see what you felt you could do. If we could work together, if we could have that kind of relationship, to kind of build something and go from there. And it did. I think you've got to be able to. You need to be able to have some sort of vibe with that person where you feel comfortable with them, and that you can say, what you want to say or what you need to say. Because I think if you haven't got that, or you don't get that feeling, then anything else is going to be really difficult, because it's quite a personal thing. And it's quite it's difficult. It's difficult to accept that you need support, help, guidance, and I think you need to be able to strike up that relationship with someone. Fortunately, we did. I think from the get-go, and then we went on from there.
There was like a little bit of fear though from your perspective, because like, let's just cast our minds back. You've had 15 years of failure, so why would the next thing be successful? Like, what were your thoughts with that?
Initially, it was like, what am I doing? This is and this is no bad reflection on you. This is just what's going through my mind. So it's like, this is a con. It's a money thing. I'm going to waste all this money. I'm going to be no further forward. What's the wife going to say when she's found out I've spent this, and then I'm still 18 stone, getting even heavier. I'm going to have to explain myself to her that I've wasted our money, and you've got all these thoughts going through your head. It's not going to work. Why would it work? Nothing else has been different. Why is this any different? And that's all going through your head constantly. Like, it was horrendous. It was really, quite anxiety provoking. And there's the financial side of it, there's the mental side of it. But then I kind of just hit a point where it's like, right, all that could happen, but what if it doesn't happen? what if none of that happens? And what if something good comes out of it? What have I got to lose? Yes, I get the financial bit, but if I keep going as I'm going, where am I going to end up? I need to do something different. And that's when it just kind of clicked with us. And it's a bit like what I'd said to you. It was a moment of clarity, but it was kind of throwing that parachute out the plane and then just diving out after it and going after it, and taking that risk. And you kind of, I think once you've committed, so once you've decided in your head, I'm going to go for this, and you pay your fee or whatever, then you're in and you're bought in. And from there, I kind of didn't look back after that. I just kind of trusted in what was going to come from that and just gave it me all, really, which I know sounds cheesy, but it was massively worrying. And I'm just a normal person. I'm not a massively wealthy person. I've got money to throw away or nothing like that. And I had to take that risk, and, it was well worth it. It was worth, every penny, and I'd do it again. If I'd known what I'd known now, earlier in my life, I'd have done it then. So yeah, it's just about kind of taking that risk, but buying in. You've got to believe it. You can't. I don't think it's a process you can go into half-heartedly. You've got to kind of fully commit.
This is why I have these conversations with people before I sign them up, because I don't want them coming into my service expecting another, slimming club or another diet. What was your what was firstly your expectations coming into it, and then what kind of struck you as a first impression?
Yeah. I think it's so initially in my head I thought, right, we'll go to Ian. He's gonna give us this magic diet, probably tell us to count calories, and he's going to tell us to lift weights and how many steps I need to do and this, that, and the other. He's going to hold my hand a bit, and it's going to be great and it's going to work. And then when I come to see you, and it wasn't any of that, and I was just, first of all, I was like, right, okay, I've got no idea how this is going to work, and this isn't what I expected at all. But again, it's that I'd already kind of bought in. I thought, right, we're gonna run with this. I didn't have any idea how it was going to work, none whatsoever. I just couldn't see it. I just thought, what is going on? But I just went with it. And then I think as time goes on, you realise that what you thought you needed isn't actually what you needed, and what you get is something that I wouldn't have been able to find out on my own. I could have spent the next 100 years on the internet researching stuff. I'd still not have gotten what I'd got from kind of working with you, if that makes sense, and something that's maintainable, which is the biggest thing. It's something that feels normal now. It's not kind of, I don't feel like I'm on a plan or, following a specific structure. I just kind of, I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's not a big thing anymore, which I, go back, however many months, I wouldn't have thought that was possible.
One of the quotes that I remember you messaging us was you came to us thinking that you were going to get a diet and you left with something completely else, different.
Yeah, it's like a course. I viewed it as, looking back now, it is like it's education, and it's you're investing in yourself. That's how I viewed it. It's you're paying for education that you can put into your well-being, really, and that's what it has been. It has been education. It's not kind of, eat this is that many calories and you'll lose that much weight. You're investing. It's a big investment in yourself, but that investment's going to kind of pay off for years and years and years down the line. And it's really difficult once you've started doing it. It's really hard not to do it, because you tend to find that I've gone into autopilot and I'm doing it anyway. Now it's kind of a sort of a subconscious thing. It's just happening with my nutrition, and everything kind of comes together. And at the start, you might not, it is, everything's new. You think, oh, what's going on? But by the end of the process, it's like, right, that's making sense. I get it. And then, when you come out the other side, all of it becomes automatic. And I think for me, it's kind of accepting that it's a journey. I think I've always chased a goal. I want to be X weight. When I get there, that's it. and then it doesn't go like that. It's just this constant journey, but you get to live more, and that's not, you haven't got this perfectionist head on where you've got to hit everything perfectly, and if you don't hit it, then that's it. Your week's kind of out the window. You just go with it. You have good days, you have bad days, but it's not the end of the world. It's kind of that bigger picture looking at it, which I could never do before this.
Yeah, you were so stuck in indecision and not knowing what was what. You'd went down so many rabbit holes, you'd tried so many diets, you'd heard so many stories, like everybody had an opinion, which ultimately left you confused, conflicted, like massively procrastinating. You and I kind of had our conversation. You took the leap of faith, like hoping that you would kind of grow your wings on the way down. It was scary, spending the money, investing in yourself, which isn't really a thing. It's not a tangible, like when you go and do a diet, you kind of know what you're getting, where with what we were doing, like part of it is like with the behavior change element is like, hey, like I'm here to meet you where you're at and work you through a process that is on your terms, inevitably to get to you to the point where you are right now, and beyond. So these subconscious autopilot automated things are just who you are now. And like, tell me about like kind of the emotional weight that's been taken off your shoulders, and where you are now in your kind of like your mentality, what you're doing and what your life's like.
It has been, I'll be honest, it has been life changing for me. I've learned so much about myself, sort of positives, areas that I need to develop in, which is great, and it's give us a better overview of me as a person. But as me kind of weight has started to reduce, I've learned that that's not everything. This isn't like, it's not just a diet. Like, it's not just where you come and eat this. It's like a lot more than that, and it's kind of takes this holistic approach and looks at everything about you. Well, that's what I got out of it. And yes, I've lost weight, and I think as you start to lose weight, the confidence comes. I couldn't jog, so from that, being able to jog, done 5k, done 10k, albeit yes, it's been on a treadmill, but still done 2 half marathons on the treadmill, back out on the bike, with my friends, feeling better in myself, able to kind of keep up in things, setting records for myself, beating previous records for myself. But it's everything. Feel better at home, feel better with my family, more energized, more focused. And there's other things, it's had an impact at work. I'm able to get more done, I think. I think uni as well. It's just give us all around confidence, all around better feeling in myself. And initially it can be hard, because I think you start to change and people notice that. They'll say, what you're doing, what you're up to. And I'm not one that's, I don't kind of plaster my stuff out there in the social space. I kind of just like to get on with things. And then I think some people will go with it and they're fine, you're changing and happy with that. But I think some people resist that. So I did find that that's difficult. But I think if anybody's kind of resistive to you changing or trying to better yourself, my feelings in the end were that says more about them than it does about me. And I'd kind of just soldiered on and kind of pressed on with it regardless. And I'd made my decision that I needed to make these changes for myself. And in time, people come around to that. And if they don't, then, I just thought, really, if you lost anything, I didn't feel that I had. But generally, it's been a massive change for me, all positive.
And I guess that kind of, you're no longer the fat lad at the back, and like that doesn't just, like, that metaphor or analogy, I get the two mixed up. That doesn't just that's not where you're not there on the bike anymore. That's like a metaphor for like where you were in life.
Yeah,
and that's how you felt. Like, whereas now you're kind of like on the bike as well. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you're the leader of the pack, but you're certainly not at the back anymore.
Yeah.
And is that how you feel kind of in your life also?
Definitely. I feel loads better in myself, loads more confident. I'm happy, better going out, better socializing, and just feel, I think other people's noticed, feel a lot happier, in a better place mentally, physically, feel good. I don't feel like I've got that kind of that fat lad at the back hanging over us, because I can see all these changes happening, and it's still happening. It's something that's maintainable, which is that's a big help. It hasn't, my worry was, right, when this ends, I'm going to go back to square one, and then probably is even worse than that. And I was kind of almost waiting for it to happen. I was like, right, any minute now. And then, weight went up a little bit, maybe it's a pound or two. But then I thought, well, hang on, I'm not worried. Like normally I would start to flap, and I didn't. And then I come back down again. I just I didn't change anything. I just stayed more or less consistent. And I don't drink a lot anyway, but I can still have like a takeaway or a meal, or drink with a meal or something like that, and nothing's really changed. It's just all kind of stayed as it is, and I've continued to lose little bits of weight, which I think is probably a healthier way to do it than a massive chunk of weight gone, and then a rebound, where this has just been a consistent kind of steady approach.
And what we've done is give you that ability to really see big picture. And like the analogy I like to use with clients is like, I'm kind of like teaching you to drive, but ultimately the lessons start to occur when that instructor's not next to you anymore. And like the principles are the principles, and that's what we kind of help you establish and gain that sense of awareness of all of the kind of, the rules of the road, the rules of life in your case. And it's just like, right, okay, then all I need to do is pause a little bit, think with clarity, maybe turn that radio down a little bit, because there's different messages. And it's just kind of, whereas in the past you would have really struggled with, like, it was either on the diet or off the diet, where it sounds like with what you're doing with the lessons, the internal work and educational work that we did, you have that kind of more clarity and understanding of all the things that you can do.
Yeah, I think it's, you think you know what you need to know, but you don't until you start the process. And what you think you need to know, what I thought I needed to know, was way above what I actually needed. Like sort of just the details, I didn't need it. And then what you did was kind of simplify things. And you've got this bigger picture, but it's also a lot simpler. And then you realize that actually, it's not difficult, it's not complex, there's no sort of secret to it. It's not my fault. I can change. I'm not kind of stuck as I was this heavy person. And I think the lessons, you just start to do them and you learn it, and it becomes just routine. And then you don't even know you're doing it, and it just kind of carries on from there. But I think for me, it's just the fact that it's so simple. It's not difficult. And what I thought it was, or what I thought I was coming to you for, it was like nothing like that. It was totally different, unexpected, but the right thing. And I've getting the tools from it to kind of carry on in the future, which has been proved. I don't even weigh myself every day and things. I just weigh myself when I feel I kind of need to. And if I'm focused, we've got like big rides coming up, then I might focus a little bit more on that to get to where I want to be for performance wise. If we're not, then I'm not really that worried about it, because I'm going more off feel than I ever was before. Than like data. I need to see this. What was I then? Oh, I've put a pound on from yesterday. This is terrible. And then you enter self-destruct mode. That's all kind of gone. And I just know, I trust in my head that I'm heading in the right direction.
And it's like this, what diets do really is like you lose that kind of trust with intuition. And that's something that we had to really kind of regain with yourself, was trust with yourself, trust with food, trust with the process. The future isn't predictable. And, from you going like to this all or nothing mentality, but like you did go all in with working together, but that doesn't mean that I'm here to restrict you. I'm here to kind of free you and kind of, you need to be all in on this kind of philosophy and mentality towards like your health, your nutrition, and your lifestyle, because the alternative was like being all in from a place of like desperation, you know, going on these quick fixes, these fad diets, which inevitably, like over a 15-year period, resulted in you being in the heaviest you've ever been. So, you know, you lost weight, you regained it plus more. Whereas with what we've done, we worked together, you went away on your own, you've continued to lose weight, you've been enjoying takeaways, you've been enjoying drinks, you've been enjoying family time. It's all about like what you're able to do more of now, whereas every diet that you've ever done has always been about removals and rules and rigidity and being strict and being good. Whereas now you've got that just sense of awareness and like overall understanding. So you're not overly like, I guess, there's not much drama in the data because you've got that just open-mindedness with it all.
Yeah, definitely. I was massive on data, like sort of counting calories and weight and fluctuations in weight and why has it gone up, why has it stayed the same, what's happened, what's different, am I doing something wrong, oh my god, it's about to fail, the wheels are going to come off, and that's just all gone. And I don't think you realize until you've come through this process like how tiring that is and how much of an impact it has on you. And that's massively, it's kind of like liberating almost. You come out the other side of it and you realize that actually none of that matters. You don't need any of that. You know, it's pretty simple what you need to do, and it's like reprogramming yourself. And you come out the other end of it, and you've kind of, you know, you've reset the computer. It's working fine, and everything's going okay. And initially, yeah, I did worry that you know I was going to get it wrong, I was going to mess it up. After you know we'd finished working together, but all that stayed. And I think you know if it can stick in my head, you know, and stay there, and I can work with it after, you know, 15 odd years of failing, you know, I think there'd be a pretty good chance that it would do the same for other people. Definitely. I think it's just like you say, it's kind of in making that investment and saying, right, I'm going to do it. We're going to get this cracked, and then striking that relationship up with yourself. I think we were, you know, you were great. I think we were pretty good at sending the messages sort of backwards and forwards, staying in touch, getting advice when I needed it. And it was that sort of, I feel that you had the focus where you would help us and you would give us guidance, but kind of, I felt it was up to me to do that, if you know what I mean. And I felt empowered to be able to do that. I think sometimes with the diet, that's taken out your hand and you're given a script or a process and it's like, follow that. Where with you, you know, it was more of sort of, you learned as you explored things as you moved on, and it was more this kind of holistic approach, not just looking at what you're eating, it's kind of looking at everything, which I think that's really helpful when you learn. And it is, I felt it was like, you're not paying for diet, you're kind of paying really for education. I looked at it as a course, because I feel like I've come out at the other end of it and I have learned something. And I'm not where I was before. I've improved from where I was before. I think it's the wrong way to look at it. Definitely not a diet, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'll say it, listen, working with a coach or a mentor who's been doing the thing that you want success in for like years, has read the books, has went through the process themselves, they've spent the money on the education. Like, to work with someone like that is not a cost, it's an investment. It's, you know, you are bypassing, as you said, like however many hundreds of hours and years of like trying to at least figure it out, but most people give up by then. Whereas if you can kind of bypass potential years of trial and error and mistakes, so they can give you the absolute best possible chance of being successful, which you absolutely will be. I'm 100% confident with that. I mean, even at the beginning of us working together, there was obvious signs that the past had impacted you, because there still was a lot of like self-doubt and you know, you needing that degree of certainty, like, what about this? What about that? How does this impact that? What's this, that, and the other? You know, again, that perfectionism, that overwhelm that basically bled from those 15 years was still coming into it. But the whole coaching process is about embracing those feelings, listening to those feelings, discussing those feelings. Like, exposure to those feelings are the best way to learn from those feelings and move beyond those feelings. So many people keep themselves stuck for years, whereas you had the courage. And it is a challenging thing. And anybody that works with me, I'm like, well done. And they go away going, I didn't think it was anything going to be anything like this. And I'm like, well, yeah, because like, unfortunately, the diet industry, the fitness industry, like helping people on a psychological basis is just, it's horrible. And it's leaving people in a far worse state, where I'm like, listen, I want to fix your life. But you have to show up. You have to be committed. You were, Michael, which, like, I'll never take credit for a client's work, because ultimately they've got to walk through the door and they've got to do the process. And you were absolutely right in this chat, in the fact that I gave you ownership, I gave you responsibility, I gave you autonomy, and these are the tools that are going to keep you going forward for the rest of your life. If you were still driving in your car right now with the driving instructor next to you because you just were so unconfident out on the road on your own, they've kind of given you a disservice. And it would be a disservice if, you know, I didn't teach you all of the physiological and psychological things that you needed to be successful forever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think, you know, I'm not knocking any sort of slimming clubs and things like that, but I don't think they cover that aspect of things in the detail that you go through. And like I said before, I don't feel this was a diet. It's kind of so much more than that. You're educating yourself, and I think that is what I needed. If I hadn't have done this, I don't think anything would have changed. It would be even worse now. And I think that's how you need to approach it, as in, like, fully buy into it, but approach it as though you are investing in yourself and kind of undertaking education. Really, it's a course, more than it is a diet, definitely. I would say.
And here you are, 20 plus pounds down, you know, maintaining that lost weight, which is something you've never done for like months on end.
No.
Like, you know, going into the future with like absolute clarity on who you are, where you are, and what you're doing. So if you're not losing weight, you know exactly why you're not losing weight. If you're gaining weight, you know why you're gaining weight. If you want to lose weight, you know how to lose weight. Like, everything's just nicely regulated from a physiological perspective in terms of your nutritional intake, but more importantly from a place of balance and that psychological thing. Before like I stop this recording, is there any like final things that maybe we haven't spoke about, or that you'd like the listeners to that you'd like to give them a message and leave on?
I would probably just say that I can't say this enough, but there's nothing special about me. You know, I'm just your normal, average, run-of-the-mill person who got into this cycle of, you know, slimming clubs, disbelief in myself, and a feeling of kind of hopelessness. And I think unless you take a chance and reach out and even have the conversation with you, even if, you know, I've never ever felt any pressure from you. So if I hadn't wanted to go ahead when we chatted, I felt comfortable enough to say that to you. I've never ever felt, you know, that pressure. And I think the first step really is kind of having that chat with you, see how things might work or what you can do, but take the risk. And kind of, if you leave it, you're going to get 15 years down the line, you'll be no further forward. I would say for me, this is definitely, without a doubt, one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And I would just like people to invest in themselves and kind of take that chance and give it a go. And I think they'd be surprised by what they find that comes out of it.
That's really good. So, you know, on behalf of myself, like the listeners, it's, you know, it's always great to like get these experience shared from like a real person. It's all well and good me telling people, but people who I've worked with who have like, you know, experienced like the fruits of the labor and they've come out the other side can just share like where they were in such a dark place to now where they are, and with so many like amazing things on the horizon also, you know, just by working together for like 3 months, you know, of coaching, online coaching. And yeah, I am here to help you, help everybody out there to help them live a better life. So again, Michael, I just want to say a huge thank you for this, and a huge well done. And you know, we'll close it down there. Thank you, mate.
No problem. Thank you very much.